Hugging Face just bought the tiny team that quietly powers a huge chunk of Run It on the Laptop AI. They say the licenses stay the same, but ownership changes who gets to decide what ships.
Hey, it is Monday, February 23rd. Today, the AI race is about who controls distribution and the infrastructure that actually runs the product. Hugging Face acquired the team behind the most popular way to run OpenAI models locally. They are saying existing licenses stay the same. The strategic shift is that Hugging Face now owns a key piece of the runs on the device path that founders use to cut cloud bills. If your app does 1 million requests a day, shaving even a fraction of a cent per request adds up fast.
Fine, but who pays when it breaks after the acquisition glow fades? I have lived through no changes promises that turned into slower fixes. If this runtime is in my product, I want a paper trail on who maintains it and how fast security issues get patched.
If I were signing that contract with myself, I would change how I describe this dependency to the board. I would call it a distribution channel we do not control. Then I would fund a boring internal backup plan, like 1 engineer week per quarter to prove we can swap runtimes without rewriting the product. That is how you reduce single maintainer risk without pretending you can predict corporate priorities.
That I buy. Keep the local path, but treat it like a vendor relationship anyway. If nobody on your team can explain how you would replace it under pressure, you do not have a plan.
The information reports OpenAI projects more than $111 billion in cash burn through 2030, even while raising revenue forecasts. The driver is computing power, both buying it and running it. When margins get squeezed at that scale, pricing pressure shows up somewhere. For a startup, the practical move is to assume your model bill can jump and design for it early.
I can already hear procurement. We love the product, but your bill doubled. Explain it. Then legal asks for a promise about uptime and response time, and the vendor pushes back because they cannot control capacity. Support gets the angry tickets when a customer's workflow stalls at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. The math says you should expect price volatility, even if you love your current provider. This works if your product can fall back to a cheaper model for routine work, then pay for the best model only when it truly matters. It breaks if you built one critical workflow that only functions on the most expensive model, because then you are a captive buyer. Honestly, I do not know how fast providers will reprice, but I would rather be embarrassed by over-preparing than surprised by a bill that wrecks my margin. I will concede one thing. Teams that track cost per customer every week sleep better. If you cannot answer, what happens to gross margin if prices jump 30%? You are guessing. So put a line item in your weekly metrics for model spend per active customer, and set a threshold that triggers a product change.
There is a smaller product update that changes day-to-day work. Claude's coding agents can now use Exa web search, so they can pull current documentation and examples without someone copy-pasting links into chat. That sounds minor, but it turns "help me write code" into "research then implement" inside the same loop. The upside is faster prototypes and fewer stale answers. Great! Now explain that to the auditor without using the word autonomous. If an agent pulls a random snippet from the web and it ends up in your codebase, who is checking the license? And when it confidently makes something up with a citation that looks real, who owns the bug report? Pilot this in a lockdown environment where the agent can only visit approved domains. Require it to attach sources to every change it suggests. Keep it away from production releases until you have records of what it looked at, because that is what makes a post-incident review possible. Promising tool, but the first win is speed on internal prototypes, not shipping to customers faster at any cost.
That is the right order. Let it help your engineers move faster, then earn trust with receipts. If you cannot show where a snippet came from, it does not ship.
In the outro, one data point to keep in your head. As Rohan Paul said, data reveals only 0.3% of the global population pays for premium AI subscriptions.
That tracks, and it is a warning label for pricing plans. If only a sliver pays, you either win by being the default inside a company, or you win by being cheap enough to be invisible. For story 1, do you bet on local runtime or a hosted model? This is readme.ai from Chain of Thought. See you tomorrow.